The rain hammered against the windows of our small apartment in Seattle, mimicking the storm brewing inside me. Alaric, an IT specialist at a local tech firm, was staring at my wife, Bronte, across our kitchen table. She was a talented graphic designer, but tonight, her usually vibrant eyes were dull, shadowed with a guilt she couldn't quite mask. It had started subtly a few weeks ago. Bronte, always glued to her phone for work, had become even more secretive. Late-night calls she'd take in the hallway, hushed whispers when I entered the room, a password suddenly appearing on her phone. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to a stressful project at work, but the knot in my stomach grew tighter with each passing day. Then came the business trip. Bronte had announced she needed to go to Portland for a conference, a 3-day event. I was happy for her. It seemed like a great opportunity, but something felt off. She was unusually excited, almost giddy, and her packing seemed excessive. I chalked it up to nerves, told myself I was being paranoid, but paranoia had a way of turning into reality. The first night she was gone, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing. I told myself to trust her, that I was being ridiculous, but the nagging feeling persisted. Around 2 a.m., I found myself staring at her laptop, sitting innocently on the desk. I knew it was wrong, a violation of her privacy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. With trembling hands, I typed in the password I'd seen her use countless times before. It didn't work. She'd changed it, my heart sank. It was a confirmation of my worst fears. I tried different combinations, old passwords we'd used, birthdays, anniversaries. Nothing. Finally, in a moment of desperation, I tried our wedding date. It unlocked. I felt a surge of relief, quickly followed by a wave of nausea. I opened her email. There it was, a thread titled Portland Plans. My hands shook as I clicked on it. The messages were from a man named Thuron. The words blurred as I read through them, each sentence a dagger twisting in my gut. Can't wait to see you, my love. Portland will be our little escape. I've booked a room at the Benson. It's supposed to be incredibly romantic. I'm counting down the hours until I can hold you in my arms again. The messages went on, each one more explicit than the last. I felt like I was going to be sick. Bronte, my wife, the woman I loved, was having an affair, and she was using a business trip as a cover. I closed the laptop, my body numb. The world seemed to spin around me. I couldn't breathe. I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited, the bile burning my throat. I sat on the floor, tears streaming down my face, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. How could she do this to me? What had I done to deserve this? Had our love been a lie? All the questions swirled in my head, unanswered and agonizing. The next few days were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. I replayed every moment of our relationship in my mind, searching for clues, for signs I had missed. I found none. We had been happy, or so I thought. We had built a life together, a home, a future. Now it was all crumbling before my eyes. When Bronte returned from Portland, she seemed lighter, happier. She told me about the conference, the speakers, the networking events. She even brought me back a souvenir, a small, handcrafted mug from a local pottery shop. I stared at the mug, a symbol of her betrayal. I wanted to scream, to confront her, to demand answers, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed by the pain, by the sheer magnitude of her deception. I decided to play along, to pretend I knew nothing. I wanted to see how far she would go, how deep her lies would run. It was a cruel game, but I felt I deserved to know the full extent of her betrayal. Days turned into weeks. Bronte continued her charade, showering me with affection, planning our future. I watched her, a hollow ache in my chest, wondering how she could be so cold, so calculating. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of her emails, records of her phone calls. I consulted a lawyer, a friend of a friend, who advised me to document everything. He told me it would be a long, difficult process, but that I had a strong case. The lawyer's name was Gareth, a man in his late 30s with a calm demeanor and a sharp mind. He listened patiently as I recounted my story, offering words of support and guidance. He helped me navigate the legal complexities, ensuring I was protected every step of the way. As I prepared for the inevitable confrontation, I realized I couldn't stay in Seattle. The city was filled with memories, with reminders of our life together. I needed a fresh start, a place where I could heal and rebuild. I decided to move to Denver, a city I had always loved. I found a new job, a new apartment, a new life. It was a daunting prospect, but I knew it was the right thing to do. The day I confronted Bronte, I was surprisingly calm. I had spent weeks preparing myself, steeling my emotions. I laid out all the evidence, the emails, the phone records, the credit card statements. She stared at me, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock. "What is this?" she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "It's the truth, Bronte," I said, my voice steady. "It's the evidence of your betrayal. I know about Thuron. I know about Portland." She burst into tears, begging for forgiveness. She claimed it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. She said she loved me, that she didn't want to lose me, but I couldn't forgive her. The trust was broken, shattered beyond repair. I had given her my heart, my soul, and she had stomped all over it. "It's over, Bronte," I said, my voice cold. "I'm filing for divorce," she pleaded, she cried, she threatened. But I stood firm. I had made my decision. I was done. The divorce was messy, as expected. Bronte fought me every step of the way, trying to take as much as she could. But I was prepared. Gareth had done an excellent job of protecting my assets. In the end, she got nothing. I moved to Denver, started my new job, settled into my new apartment. It was lonely at first, but I slowly started to rebuild my life. I made new friends, explored the city, rediscovered my passions. One evening, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered it. "Alaric." A woman's voice said. "Yes, who is this?" I asked. "It's Isolde, Thuron's wife." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice wary. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for exposing the affair. I had my suspicions, but I didn't have any proof. You gave me the courage to leave him." I was stunned. "You're welcome," I said, unsure of what else to say. "He's a terrible man," Isolde continued. "He's cheated on me before. I should have left him a long time ago, but I was afraid. Thank you for setting me free." We talked for a while longer, sharing our experiences, our pain. It was comforting to know that I wasn't alone, that someone else had suffered at the hands of Thuron. Before we hung up, Isolde said, "I hope you find happiness, Alaric. You deserve it." Her words resonated with me. I realized that I had been so focused on the pain, on the betrayal, that I had forgotten to focus on myself. I had allowed Bronte's actions to define me, to control me. It was time to let go, to move on, to find my own happiness. I started dating again, cautiously at first. I met some wonderful women, but none of them felt right. I wasn't ready to commit, not yet. I needed more time to heal, to rebuild my trust. Then one day I met her. Her name was Genevieve. She was a kind, intelligent, and beautiful woman. We connected instantly. We shared our stories, our dreams, our fears. Genevieve understood my pain, my hesitation. She didn't pressure me, didn't rush me. She simply offered her support, her love, her friendship. Slowly, I started to fall in love again. I realized that not all women were like Bronte. There were good, honest, and loyal people out there. I just had to be patient, to open my heart again. 1 year later, I married Genevieve. It was a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by our closest friends and family. As I stood at the altar, looking into her eyes, I knew I had found my soulmate. Bronte's betrayal had been the most painful experience of my life. But it had also been a catalyst for change, for growth, for healing. It had taught me the importance of self-love, of self-respect, of never settling for less than I deserved. I had survived the storm, and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Years passed. I built a wonderful life with Genevieve. We had 2 beautiful children, a boy and a girl. I never forgot about Bronte, but I no longer dwelled on the past. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for my own. One day I received a letter from Bronte. It was a long, rambling apology. She admitted her mistakes, her selfishness, her cruelty. She said she had ruined her life, that she had lost everything. She had divorced Thuron shortly after Isolde left him. He had moved on to another woman, another affair. Bronte was alone, penniless, and filled with regret. She asked for my forgiveness, for a second chance, but I couldn't give it to her. I had moved on, I had found happiness, and I wasn't willing to risk it all for someone who had betrayed me so deeply. I wrote her back a short, simple letter. I wished her well, but I made it clear that there was no future for us. I told her to focus on healing, on rebuilding her life, on finding her own happiness. I never heard from her again, but I often wondered what had become of her. I hoped that she had found peace, that she had learned from her mistakes. But I knew that our paths would never cross again. I looked at Genevieve, at our children, at our beautiful home. I smiled, grateful for the life I had built, for the love I had found. Bronte's betrayal had been a dark chapter in my life, but it was just that, a chapter. The story was far from over, and I was the author of my own destiny.